Hope you are doing amazing this afternoon. Sorry for the late start. Had some meetings and needed to have a bit of lunch. Still having my coffee post lunch. So today I want to tell you about one, if not the most useful thing I learned during my PhD at MIT, which are techniques for baiting reviewers. Okay, this is baiting in a good sense. It's not like tricking. It's just like feeding reviewers very delicious morsels so that they will want to give a revise and resubmit decision on the paper. I have sort of like refined this advice by like trying it out myself, but also by acting as a reviewer for many of the leading journals in IS and in management. So this works, and it was my advisor Vander Rakowski who told me about this in a class. Well, us in a class about how to publish. And she has this like a major contribution to qualitative studies of IS, which is this genre approach to electronic communication. And in this class, she told us that basically she submitted this paper to SQ, which now is the paper that defined or that laid down genre analysis of electronic communication. She the first submission was about something else. It was about coordination and communication technology, something like that. But in the first paper that she sent, and so this advice is for the first submission to one journal, right? So it doesn't work for revise or resubmit. So this is your first submission. Just by accident, not by accident, but not trying to bait reviewers like I'm teaching you to do. But she just wrote that something on a footnote, something like, electronic communication can be studied from a genre perspective by classifying email messages like you classify literary genres like fantasy, science fiction, and so on. Anyway. And the reviewers actually told her, we want your paper. So they basically sort of like, I think she got a revise and resubmit decision. She didn't discuss these details, and at the time, reject and resubmit was not as popular as it is now. But she got the equivalent of what today would be a reject and resubmit decision, which is, we love this idea of genres of electronic communication, but that's not what the paper is about. So basically, just like start everything from scratch and send us a new paper on genre analysis. Okay, and this not only got her published in ASQ, but also actually started this whole like genre analysis stream that she basically created. So this was really amazing. Okay, so what I want to tell you are my 3 tips to to lay bait for you reviewers so that they bite on your paper. Okay, again, this is not bait as in bait and switching on like pretending your paper is something else. No, this is about broadening the appeal of your paper to reviewers so that even if your theoretical contribution is not there, that they will still issue a revise and resubmit decision. Okay, now the easy one and the one that I use all the time is to overload your first submission. So the first manuscript that you send to a journal, overload it with data. Okay, And if you're ever at a conference or at a seminar or something, especially when somebody's presenting a qualitative paper, typically what will happen is that people will have like a gazillion ideas on what the theory framing of your paper should be and how it contributes to the literature and so on and so forth, right? So I remember that something that surprised me when I moved from Europe to the US was that in Europe, people were mostly curious about like the theory and the frameworks and the theoretical contribution, and they still are. I mean, if you compare, for example, papers in org studies and org science or MJ, you'll see that org studies papers spend a lot more time on theory, and org science and papers or MJ papers that are qualitative will spend much more time on data and much less on theory. That's a big difference. So, and definitely, like, I saw the appeal, and I, sat in many presentations at MIT where people were mostly presenting data, because what they wanted, well, if you have like cool data, you look like you're smart and an amazing researcher, whereas if you come up with like your provisional theories, maybe not so much. Secondly, if you present data, I mean, you'll get suggestions on, from everybody. Like everybody will say, well, this would be great for this and that and the other, and that helps you, come up with a cool frame for your paper, right? So first thing that you should do is put lots of data, okay? So normally a data section in my paper, in one of my papers, is between 12 and 15 pages on R&Rs. But on the first submission, it's between 15 and 17 pages, and sometimes like I do like a super streamlined theory, and I'll push it to as close as 20 as I can. Because, I mean, and if you reviewed, this probably happened to you as well. I mean, for me, this like happens like all the time, that I get like, even for very good journals, like I remember I got this paper on control where, I kid you not, reading this paper just seemed that these people just didn't bother to read the literature on controlling organizations to write the paper. But the data were so cool, so amazing, that I actually like almost like outlined the theory section for them and told them, look, I mean, your data is amazing. This is what I think you should do. I was reviewer number 1, the nice one, not reviewer number 2. Anyway, so lots of data. And I know this sometimes can be scary because you think like, I'm an academic, I want to show them how sophisticated I am as a theorist, as a theory builder. So you want like a super nice theory section and discussion. My friends, the point of a first submission is to get a revise and resubmit. Because, and many of you know this because many of you have published, you then begin to write the papers for those reviewers, right? They will ask you things that a different review team will not ask you. So basically, the first draft of your paper is to get a revise and resubmit letter with a to-do list, with review letters that say, this is what you need to do, okay? So, lots of data. That has, for me, worked all the time, both as an author and as a reviewer. Great, okay? Second, and this one is even scarier, okay? So let's breathe, okay? I know. But again, this is not advice on how to write, your revise and resubmit. It's how to write your first draft, okay? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to it's almost like, when you do like a birthday party, a buffet, something, that you put lots of stuff so that, people will always find something that they like, even if they don't like the rest, right? So this is the same thing, okay? So bear with me on this. Partial misoverlap between theory and discussion. That means that you are invoking some theory, some framework in your discussion that you haven't invoked and talked about and reviewed in the theory section. This is not something you should do. You should never invoke new theories in the discussion. Every theory in the discussion should have been described and explained in the theory section. That's how you write a good, concise, clean, silky smooth paper, okay? But this is not a paper. This is a first submission, okay? So if you broaden, that's where the misoverlap, I would say, should be. If you broaden the discussion a little bit, you may write something that reviewers will be interested in, okay? And obviously you don't want to write like a huge discussion. Why not? Because you need a space for the data. Remember, data first, right? So, but you need to have, I would say, you need to be bold on this, because we all know that, sometimes reviewers just skim through the paper. Like, I've had reviewers asking me to add sections that were already in the paper with that title, okay? So sometimes they skim. So I would say that you should aim for like 1/3 of your discussion does not overlap with your theory, minimum a quarter. Other than that, if we're talking 10 pages, like that's a quarter, that's like 2.5 pages. They need to see it, okay? So I use this like all the time, the lots of data. I use this sometimes, not always, because I just found the lots of data one to be more effective. Also, as a reviewer, I find it more appealing here than to be fed a bit of theory. But sometimes it's a really tasty bit of theory. So really really nice. And the final one is commentary. So I've never done this because I'm still a little bit of a perfectionist, and this bothers me. But this is what Van Volokowski did in the genre paper. So I want to put it out there as a viable strategy. And this is to do what Venda did, which is add commentary on a paper. Like she did, like as a footnote or in parentheses. This could be seen as a genre analysis, like you analyze literary genres. Okay. Now, obviously, like better journals, your papers tend to get more thoroughly reviewed, because unfortunately people take it more seriously. We should take all reviews seriously, obviously, but empirically, I guess that's my observation. But anyway, so the problem with commentary is that people may skip it, so you need to be very judicious about where you put it. So, for example, I'll never put it in the conclusion, because people never read conclusions. I'll put it perhaps in the introduction, or like really at the start of the discussion. But yeah, so you could do that. But in the other two approaches, you're more casting a net, right, to catch like all the fish, all the reviewers. Here, you're just like putting like a really tasty morsel on a hook, right? And that hook, is just going to catch this one fish, but like Vanda catch this one reviewer, and that was enough. Okay, so these are the 3 techniques. What do I want you to take away from today? That your first submission is to convince reviewers to give you a revised resubmit. It doesn't need to be close to final of your paper, and to give reviewers an opportunity to tell you what you should do with the paper. Okay, most effective, that's why it's in the bigger font, right? Most effective strategy if you're doing qualitative research, include lots of data. Okay, you need a good theory section, you need a good discussion section, but streamline, cut, go to Hemingway, like make the text as efficient as possible, use tables, whatever you can do to carve some space out of the theory and the discussion, and use it for data. Okay, lots of data. Second strategy, talk about some theories and theoretical contributions in the discussion that you haven't discussed in the theory. And final strategy, never tried it, never seen it, except in this paper by Van der Orkowski, but obviously I'll only see it as a reviewer, right? But I do review quite a bit, but I've never seen this. So I cannot say how well it worked with me or not. What really works with me is the lots of data, definitely. As an ethnographer, you love data. Okay, so I hope this was useful. Think about it, this really works. So maybe something that you can think about for the next paper that when you have a first submission. And well, good luck with everything. Tomorrow, it's Thursday, it's a live writing day. I'll be like doing like the very last fine tuning of papers, like reducing sentence length. Either that, or I'll be working on another paper and do the really front end. So what do I mean by front end? Basically, like reading and trying to find a good framing for this paper. Okay, so hope you enjoy the stream. Have a great time, and don't forget to like and subscribe.